Welcome to the Amphibian Press podcast. I'm V.S. Holmes, and with me today is Jackiem Joyner, author and musician. I have a glimpse of his debut, ZARYA, which is a young adult science fiction. ZARYA is only 15, but her planet's fate lies in her hands. Will she stop Garrick and his secret weapon in time to save the people? Governed by a brutal military, Cydnus is an advanced desert planet with drones and flying killing machines, buildings that claw high into the sky. Everything is under surveillance, and everyone is controlled by this system. It's a fact, the way of life, and no one dares question it. That is, until Zarya's father confronts Garrick, the planet's sadistic chief military officer. Immediately he's silenced and never heard from again. In a desperate search to find her parents, ZARYA uncovers a plot by Garrick to release a lethal weapon against the people, killing half the population, the weaker half, with inferior DNA. Using her father's research and detailed specs of the technology used by the military, she is Cydnus's only hope. Equipped with Sochi, her AI-powered flying airboard, and accompanied by her high school friends, ZARYA sets out on a journey to find her family, stop Garrick, and save her home from certain destruction. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely.
Give me a little bit of the inspiration behind your book.
The novel Zarya kind of came by accident because it's really my first novel, and I'm writing some more now. I've always been a huge science fiction fan, and I love visuals and CGI and characters from different worlds and different planets. But I also love technology, and I really kind of wanted to jumble that all together, um, and a lot of roles are kind of led by dudes. So, uh, you know, I figured to spice it up a little bit with Zarya, and then also make her young, kind of naive, so to speak, as she's figuring out what's been happening to her planet and discovering. What her father kind of was working on, and pursuing that technology, as well as continuing her father's work, but at the same time realizing how dark things are for her planet. Um, I also tagged her up with a pretty cool teammate named Kizzy. And so Zarya, she's really good with like computer tech and whether it's hacking, um, different anything that's in kind of the computer world. Her best friend Kizzy is more so more hands-on. She does like her father is kind of in the mechanics and works on the flying machines and drones and stuff like that. And he works at the factory with fixing the drones and making them work. So that's how his daughter Kizzy knows the kind of the hard mechanics of things. So the two
Mhm.
of them young work together, and then they attempt to save the planet without giving away too much.
Aren't we all sort of hoping to do that at this point? Oh.
Yeah. And I don't think that Zarya really knows that she's saving the planet. Um, the beginning, and I really don't want to give away too much of the book. I want people to
Mhm.
actually go and buy it. but her father and Garrick were the two top. Well, her father was the top scientist for the planet. Garrick was kind of the political guy and made sure that they had money. So her father and Garrick worked together closely. Garrick was promoted to chief military scientist, and he wanted to use Aaron's, who's Zarya's father,
Mhm.
his development for something more than just saving people. And that's where her father disagreed with giving him the technology that he discovered and things like that. So he silenced and put away, and never heard from until finally Zarya starts asking questions.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about why you chose to make it YA. Because I know a lot of authors, they come under flack because it's like, oh, well, what teenagers are going to do this? What teenagers are going to save the world? And I think a lot of us now, as we're looking at the state of affairs, we're seeing a lot of younger people are really helping out and have a different way of looking at things. So was that part of your inspiration, or where else did it come from?
You know, I've always thought younger people were kind of like the underdog, as people don't take them seriously. you know,
Yeah.
who is this? As a musician, as a touring musician, I was always the youngest person. By at least 20 years touring with the
Hmm.
musicians that I toured with. So I was always the young guy, and maybe that's the reason why. Who knows? But I like the idea of them being young and naive, and adults telling them to stay away and to not do this, and let the authorities handle it, and but instead they're like, well, you guys don't know that this is going on, and look what we can do. We made this airboard that can fly, and we're able to hack into these
Hmm.
systems. They're not supposed to be doing things, and next thing against their her grandmother's wishes, she actually goes in and is able to actually get into the military base, through using Sochi, and through her computer programming. So it gets really, really dangerous for her and her friends, and they're
Hmm.
doing some really dangerous stuff. But the idea about being young is that they kind of know the dangers, but don't really, really understand the dangers. So
Right.
I thought that was kind of a cool way of going about it. And then, plus, adding the fact that she's female, so female and young, there's two points against you right there.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great because so often, we see older generations, especially in worlds like the one you've created, where there's this either surveillance state or just kind of grinding attrition. The older
Hmm.
generation is tired. They don't have the
Hmm.
energy to go solve these problems, and like you were
Yeah.
saying, young kids don't know any better, but that's a good thing.
Hmm.
They don't
Yeah.
know that it's so dangerous, or we, when we're young we all think we're immortal, so
Exactly. I mean, and I tell you, in this book, I certainly made them really almost believe that they were immortal with some of the dangerous things that they got involved with. So, but yeah, younger people. They're not really afraid, and they're trying out new things. Not afraid to try out something new, and even though they're told not to do things, they go and try it out and see if it works. Anyway. So I wrote the story so that Zarya's she lives in a village outside of the main city, which is called New Sabrinia, which
Mhm.
has all of the flying drones, and the big skyscrapers, and all of the police officers, and people flying bikes and everything. So she's never been there before. She's always wanted to go there, because you can barely see it across the desert space where she lives. You can barely see the city. So she's always wanted to go there, but she was never able to go there. Now she has a reason to go there. When she goes there for the very first time, she's just met with awe, with with all of the people that are there, and all the technology that she sees that she didn't know existed, and things like that too. So she's very excited to find her father's lab, and see if she can, because her initial purpose is actually to find her father. She doesn't actually know that there's a problem with the oxygen on the planet until she starts to read and understand what her father was working on.
Mhm.
So she went to an old lab that when because he was taken away when she was a child. So she goes back to his old lab, and she actually uses her name to actually get into the system, the computer system, and then she actually understands a lot of the stuff that her dad was working on. And then so now it goes from finding her dad to, wow, we really need to let the people know that the planet is actually running out of oxygen.
Mhm.
So so that's kind of how her story is, coming from a small town, a small town
Yeah.
girl.
Well, I'm from a small town, so I get that.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've mentioned the technology a little bit. What kind of tech did you end up using, or was it sort of like ours, which is a conglomeration of various technologies?
Well, I mean, for one, you have flying bikes. You have obviously lots of flying drones. Her AI airboard Sochi that she develops uses the energy from the sun. It can stay afloat and it can go really, really fast.
Oh, neat.
There are amazing like helicopter type machines that are that are in the city. There's computerized systems that control a network of drones, search drones, like she's being searched by some drones and things like that, and and they can also attack. So or they can just try to arrest. There's a scene I wrote where she's hiding in a back alley trying to get away from the drones that are scanning the ground for her, and she kicks her way into a into a door, and these drones are very efficient. They land on the ground and then they start just crawling into small spaces, and they have this little um, laser to beam that can basically see every single thing or any living thing within the area. So
Hmm.
like any heartbeat or
Oh,
anything like
wow.
that. So that. But I mean, if you can think of like let's say The Fifth Element, which is one of my favorite
Right.
movies, and you can imagine like the taxi cabs that are in the air, and all the cars are kind of flying around. That's the main crux of the civilization.
Hmm.
That she lives. Of course, even her school bus, when they're going to school, it lands, it picks up the kids, and then it takes off and then flies over to the school. But I wrote it so that the bus is kind of old and a little rusty and dusty. So even though it can do these things like fly, it's still like an old bus, and they're trying to get a new one.
Yeah. I I love that because I think it's neat to see, like a lot of sci-fi has this, elaborate high tech, stuff, and that does happen in cities, but I think it adds a neat layer to the world when you can see these high tech things, but they're already out of date.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
this old bus, like it's flying, but
It's
but it's still the
flying.
rickety old bus.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
barely getting off the ground, and you can see all the smoke coming out. So I wrote the stories kind of like that, and even like when she was trying to develop because she develops her flying airboard, because a lot of the junk comes in from the city, old drones and stuff, and they dump all that stuff in her little town.
Hmm.
All of those parts and stuff like that. So she actually kind of goes in, breaks into the junkyard, so to speak, and then she finds a energy cell that she puts with this other thing, and so it's so weird, and
Hmm.
then she's testing it with her little data pad on her arm and stuff like that, and then she finally gets it to function, and then she makes it even more superior than she thought she could make it just from using junk parts.
That's cool. I love that stuff. I think for me, really, the sci-fi worlds that draw me in the most are the ones that have those little details and the
Mhm.
things that remind us so much of our own world and the people around us, but maybe slightly to the left.
Yeah, yeah, slightly to the left, and also some of the characters I wrote, like Zarya is more like an elf kind of a character, sorta,
Hmm.
but some of the other people could look like reptiles, or have a certain type of skin, like a snake type of skin,
Oh,
or
cool.
have be one person can be like really yellowish
Hmm.
and look like a bird a little bit or whatever. So they all have this different thing about them. They don't all look the same. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so like some will have tails, others won't have tails. Some will have really long ears, or just things to keep it, keep it spicy,
Hmm.
with the visuals.
Yeah, I definitely think we can get a little bogged down in trying to make sci-fi and fantasy realistic, which is sort of counterintuitive to
Yeah,
me because like
right.
that's the fun, right?
It's
All the wild races, the magic, the technology, whatever it is. So.
and like the stuff that's going on. on her planet. It's not, it's not magic. I mean, the technology
Hmm.
obviously is kind of old, as far as Zarya is concerned. They need to, she feels that she's smarter than the stuff that they're doing in the big city, so a lot of the stuff is it's old tech. And then obviously when she teams up with her friend Kizzy, who's really great because her dad fixes those drones every single day at the factory,
Hmm.
she helps with developing like certain things. So together they're kind of a team.
I like that.
Yeah, so
So, sort of switching gears a little bit here, because I just have to ask, how did you get started with writing a novel when your career so far has been as a musician? Because I think, I mean, obviously they're both incredibly creative um, careers, but I just find it really interesting.
I would say it probably happened by accident because touring, I've probably toured close to 40 different countries as a musician, as an artist.
Hmm.
So you're always, waiting to board a flight, or sitting at the airport for hours, or backstage just waiting for sound check, or waiting at the hotel for your rooms to be ready, or whatever it is. I kind of found that time to start writing because, I would always use the time to watch my favorite movies, and then, but I'm such a big critic that I'd listen and watch these movies, and I'm like, man, it just, the plot could have been so much better, or, they really should have done this, or, I would have started it off like this. So I just kind of took that and said, hey, why don't you just, create your own little story or whatever. So I said, okay, whatever, I'll just write like a chapter just to see. I didn't really care too much. It wasn't really anything serious. But after a couple of weeks, of just kind of really just rushing through from the beginning of the story to the end, I was like, okay, let's go back and let's do some more writing. Let's rewrite this, because I make records. So I kind of rush through a song when I'm writing a song or an album, and then I'll go
Right.
back and start fixing stuff, making it make sense. Because usually, your first thing you write is just usually basically garbage, So,
Yeah.
but in that garbage, there's little nuggets, of of diamonds that you can pick out of the trash and be like, okay, yeah, let's make this something central, or let's
Hmm.
build around this, with music. So
Yeah.
and it kind of was working the same way with the story, honestly. And then I was
Hmm.
going back and I was like, yeah, this is cool. Let's do that. And you kind of go through, and through your second draft, and then it's your second draft. It's kind of less garbage.
You hope, right?
Yes.
Well, I was going to ask if your creative process differed between writing and composing and producing, because I think a lot of authors have a secondary creative pursuit, or or primary, depending on how their lives are. But I'm always interested in whether our creativity expresses itself the same way, between different mediums. Because for me, I write both sci-fi and fantasy, and my process is actually pretty different between the two genres.
Hmm.
And that's just within the same, like that's still writing. So
Hmm.
I always think it's very interesting how people's processes differ or don't.
I feel like, for me at least, that the process seems to be quite similar to writing songs.
Hmm.
Because there's this whole, like I can imagine I'm writing a new song, and the keyboard is turned on, and I'm like, what tempo is it going to be? What's going to be the first note?
Hmm.
And you're like, okay, let me just play a chord and see what happens from there.
Yeah.
So the same thing kind of with writing, um, but Zarya, I would say I wasn't kind of a blank thing because I was already inundated with watching so many science fiction movies, and I know that I wanted it to be like a science fiction. I
Hmm.
didn't know that it wanted to be a young adult science fiction, um, led by a female character. But I knew that I wanted to, hey, this started off with some amazing, cool space, or not space stuff, but some cool technology, and stuff that exists that is going to be 1,000 years from now, and just
Hmm.
start off there, and then make a story from the visual aspect of it, So
Yeah.
and then you just keep going. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, it seems like a similar process to me.
That's neat. And I think it's really cool how you talk about you start out with like, okay, what tempo, what, these little detail questions that are from, I think, maybe a reader or a listener's perspective, it can
Hmm.
seem not as important as just like, oh, well, plot A to plot B to, this is how the story progresses, but
Hmm.
it's so key to the feeling behind the song or the story.
Yeah.
And it's neat that you start with that.
Yeah, I mean, because tempo is important because I mean, you need to know like what are you really trying to convey with the song?
Hmm.
Is it a happy song? Is it a sad song? Is it do you want people to dance? Or you just So it's like even before you start playing your first note, you almost really have to decide what you're going to be writing. What is the purpose of the song? So and then once you decide on the purpose of the song, you can perhaps listen to similar songs that have the same purpose
Hmm.
and drive off of some ideas and say, okay, that's cool what they did or whatever. And then the next thing you know, once you get going, it's like and you're in the zone, you forget about all that stuff and you're just plowing through,
Just fly.
yeah,
Yeah.
but answering those first few questions will help set you in the right direction.
Mhm. Now, this is just my curiosity now. So obviously, with writers, we have kind of the two camps of people who plot and then people who write by the seat of their pants.
Hmm.
Um, and I think most of us are somewhere in between, closer to one end or the other of the spectrum. But
Hmm.
does composing have the same sort of divide? Or is there such thing as someone who plots or outlines their music versus just winging it, or is that just jamming? I guess.
Well, you can start a song kind of by jamming and then
Hmm.
turning your jam stuff into like kind of a song. I will say there is a small difference. Like for instance, I consider when I'm writing a song in the beginning, it's a bit more technical because I'm trying
Hmm.
to steer the song in a certain direction. But once I get the layout of the song, and I've kind of created the shell of the song, that's when it really gets fun. And that's when it's just like you're letting your mind create parts
Hmm.
over top of this shell that you have and just letting it go. But when it comes to writing, um, it's kind of flipped. It's like in the beginning, that's when you're just going and it's just exciting. It's just like whatever happens, just write it down,
Yeah.
and just you're just pulling from all your imagination and just going. But then it gets more technical when you're trying to fix the story.
Yeah.
So the technical stuff kind of comes after the fact with
Mhm.
writing is literature, but then when it comes to music, it's like the beginning part is like the structure part.
Yeah.
you
That's
know,
fascinating.
yeah, so weird.
Yeah. So, what are you planning for next? Is this part of a series? Are you going to be writing sort of in a different genre? What's your plan?
Well, I would like to finally get going, continue on the second story, which I have started, but I've actually kind of finished. I'm getting my second novel is going through the editing process now, and that's called Minor Assassin, which is not science fiction. It's more real world. It's a young and it does deal with a young teenager who
Hmm.
takes the law into his own hands. He learns how to fight and kill from going to Japan, and he wants to avenge his parents back in Las Vegas. At the same time, he's stopping a network of human traffickers, while detectives are looking for him because he's killing off a lot of bad guys. So so this is more mystery, martial arts, criminal kind of a story. So it's
Oh,
definitely a ways away from Zarya.
yeah.
Because this one has like serious violence in it,
Hmm.
so but he's also I did kind of write him to be kind of a techie too, so he uses devices, spy devices and different things like that, just to kind of spice it up a little bit. He has a mech hand, like a metal hand, because he lost his hand in Japan doing training, but they turned that into this really amazing thing that can um, do like an EMP and shut down
Oh,
electricity and
cool.
stuff like that. So, so it's
I want one.
yeah, or it can actually has a gravity thing on it to make his boomerang come back or whatever. So this
Hmm.
is it's got some science fiction elements to it, but it's
Yeah.
violent if he uses his hand to crush a bone, so to speak.
Hmm. Well, that sounds exciting too. Is are you planning for that one to be a series as well, or is that
Uh,
mostly a standalone?
I actually do plan on it being well. That book will be a series, but it's Minor Assassin, which will be more like a minor assassin. Minor because they're minors,
Hmm.
actually, he's the main book. He's the first assassin, but there are going to be other assassins around his age from around the world. That'll be more like short stories. Like I have a story that I'm working on from a girl from Kenya who kind of merges into the plot, but it'll be in a later short story, and then someone from Mexico, whatever. Because the organization that trains them have actually been training people all over the world. So those other short stories would kind of bring the main story together, and then people will be able to kind of continue the story based on other characters.
That's cool. I always love that because I feel like both as a reader and a writer, sometimes the characters I fall in love with the most in a book are the supporting characters,
Mm.
or the character's best friend. And
Hmm.
it's really fun when an author, or if I'm the author, I get to do it on my own,
Hmm.
but you get to explore those characters in a different way. So,
Yeah, and like on this, the strongest characters, in my opinion, of course, John, which is the main character, but it's actually one of the detectives who works with the main detectives, and she's an older. Well, she's not old. I would say she's probably 30 or something like that. She's older than him, obviously, but she has a
mhm,
passion for finding out what happened with him and his family. So her character is her story is kind of fascinating too. Working for the department, the detective department in Las Vegas, and chasing down. They've already were trying to find the people, the Japanese network that's been doing human trafficking in Vegas. But then all of a sudden, this boy comes along, and then they find out that his family was the family they had the home invasion
mhm.
where his parents were killed or whatever. But they don't really put that together until at the very end that they know that he's the one, he's the boy that they've been looking for, and his sister. So
Oh, that's awesome.
so and that's like it's like a side story. The whole story with the detectives trying to find disrupt the network, and it's like a whole side story, and then John's story is kind of paralleling that story.
Mhm. That's fascinating. Well, now I have two books on my to be read list here.
Yes, 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 yes.
So where can my listeners find you?
You can go to for all of my readers. I like to send them to my website, jackingjoyner.com/book club. Um,
Hmm.
it's basically my name. So if you can spell my name.com and you can remember /book club, that has all of the stuff with regards to my writing, the books that I'm reading, and stuff like that. Obviously, if you're interested in my music, just go to jackingjoyner.com, and
Hmm.
you'll see my music, my albums, my discography, my tour dates, which all have but been canceled for this year.
I was wondering. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a major tour, that was just, all the way set through the fall, and just one by one, from March,
Mm.
they all dropped like dominoes. And my last concert was March 1st in Jakarta, Indonesia, um,
Oh wow.
and I barely got back in time before everything got shut down. I think I got back around March 6th. And I
Mm.
flew through Taipei, Taiwan, and that was already a headache
That's
because I was
scary. Yeah.
I was like, man, are they going to let us land in Los Angeles? So there was that. Haven't been on a plane since.
Well, good, I guess. Right.
Yeah, so it's like,
Oh,
and the last time I've been home, I can't remember the last time I've been home like this. I mean, this is we're talking maybe 15 years
oh wow.
since I've been home like this and not touring. I have been able to finish some new music that I will be putting
I
out for
was
my
wondering.
repertoire.
I was like, is this downtime productive? I mean, it's hard, I think, for a lot of us to be productive, but
Well, I was able to finally get the final draft done for Minor Assassin, so I'm happy with that.
Good.
And then, of course, I composed about 6 songs, and I'm going to put out late August, and I have a new single that's going to be going to radio just at the beginning of September. So my fans will be excited about hearing new music. So that's kind of what I've been doing, and make just want to make sure this time doesn't make me go insane, because I to go go back and perform, and people will be like, wow, he's a little off.
A little off, yeah.
you
I
know
think we're all going to be a little off by the end of this, like,
yeah.
already.
What's that movie, Castaway? It's like you've been cast
Yes.
away, but you don't know that you're off. It's everyone else knows that you're off, but you don't. And
Yeah.
that's
I I realized about, I think it was probably week 4, because both my spouse and I are archaeologists, so we stay at home when the ground is frozen. So we've been doing this since December. Obviously we weren't like locked down, but we've been staying home in a very small apartment with just the two of us for a hot minute.
oh
And
wow.
so like week 4 of like the official lockdown quarantine, I realized I was, dancing around my apartment with my house plants, and maybe I needed to just go sit outside for a second.
Now, are you guys in New York, or you guys on the East Coast or the West Coast?
East Coast, yeah, we're in New England, so we're up.
Oh, okay, okay. So where did I had some stuff in Connecticut,
Mhm.
and up near that area.
Yeah,
But
Boston probably
yeah, yeah,
too.
Boston too. I had some stuff in Boston too. So
Yeah, there's a lot of great venues, and I mean it's a nice place to visit when it's safe to visit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't wait till things get back to normal again.
Yeah, just something. It would be nice if just something would happen.
Exactly.
Well, I'll be sure to put all of the links, down in the description, and I'm excited to check out your work. I have one of your books already on my Kindle, so that's on the ever growing list of things I'm going to read. So
Yeah, that's great. Well, I hope you enjoy it, and be on the lookout for some of the short stories that I'm going to be doing too.
yeah.
So, short stories are great because for one, it's much easier to manage.
Mhm.
So, but I'm trying to make them so that they still have good impact, even though they're short.
Yeah,
Um,
I love short fiction. I think it's really interesting, especially, I mean, both writing and reading it, but you can really impact people in a very precise way, in a way that I think longer works, while they have more range to be impactful,
mhm,
sometimes it gets lost, right?
mhm, mhm. Yeah, 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 and then kind of leaving some cliffhangers. I like to leave things open just in case I want to continue the story.
Yeah, that's
Just
always
in
good,
case.
right?
Yeah, just in case. And if not, okay, we'll just leave it there. But there's this little thing, this unanswered question.
It's the post credits scene in the movies, right?
Yeah, the post-credit scene. You just have one of those at the end, because if people are really loving it, then you can be like, okay, people are digging this, and I can shell this out in a week.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This was an awesome conversation, and I'm definitely excited to check out your work and also your music. I was doing some YouTubing before this, so
Oh, okay, great. It's been really fun talking to you, and I've probably got to check out one of your books.
if you'd like, I do lesbian archaeologists in space, and I do epic fantasy. So those are my
Oh, that sounds fun.
awesome. Yeah. Well, this has been the Amphibian Press podcast. I'm VS Holmes, and with me today was author and musician Jackiem Joyner. Thank you so much for listening.